And the third largest delegation is from Malaysia. Up, up. Let me see you. Actually, there are delegations that may seem small, but they're significant. Like there are almost 20 from Mexico. I don't know where the Mexicans are. And from the Philippines, I know there's a delegation. Where are you? Anyway, you know, Cameroon is here with 10. It doesn't matter what the number is. It's what's important, whether you're part of a delegation or you're coming alone, you are truly making this summit global. And I welcome you and I thank you for making the effort to be part of this 32nd year Global Summit of Women. Global is the hallmark of the summit, and you have never failed in making it so. Now, for those of us, and there are many who couldn't come here, for those who were not lucky enough, like you in this room, to be part of the summit this year, I want you to tweet, to text, to blog, to videotape, email, send photos, your observations, send videos, because there are many who couldn't come because of the continuing lockdowns, as well as the strict quarantine rules in some countries, or the sky-high airfares that happened because of inflation. So I want them to have access to the remarkable speakers who are here, not only tonight, but also in the next 2 days. So we're gonna rely on you to convey to others the content of this incredible summit. The hashtag, if you haven't figured it out, is GSW 2022. Again, GSW 2022 for Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, there are many of you who are new to this summit. In fact, the majority of you are new to this summit. So you may not know that our focus is on solutions. It is not on complaining about the challenges that we face. No whining, I always say at the summit. So here, women are part of the solutions, because without women providing such solutions, the world will be bereft of half of the talents. So we want to share for the next 2 days practical strategies forged by women for women so that we can all have our own place in the sun. But that said, it would be foolhardy not to acknowledge that we are in very difficult, challenging times. We have a continuing pandemic that still holds its grief with ever-changing mutations. And so when we will conquer this virus is still unclear. There is a world right now impacted by a European war that has changed all alliances and may create famine in Africa and the Middle East due to blockages of grain shipments. There is still climate change, the natural disasters that are triggered by them, but our attention has been distracted by the other challenges that I mentioned. So despite all the signatories in Glasgow last year, carbon emissions have not decreased, instead they have increased. And so that is something we cannot forget, because scientists have told us that the tipping point is around the corner. So we cannot forget our responsibility to mitigate the consequences of climate change. So basically, the world is edging slowly towards what I consider to be an unknowable future, to a time of continuing uncertainties, because this intractable COVID, this ongoing war, and ever-increasing natural disasters because of climate change don't show any endpoint. We don't know where post is. So the shape of this evolving new reality, which is in the title of our theme, has yet to be seen. But these forces that I mentioned before are creating changes in ways that we haven't envisioned, changes in where we work, how we work, and what kind of work that we're going to do, changes in where we live, because now people are leaving urban areas to rural ones, changes in how we relate and how we communicate, because we have been talking through a screen for over 2 years, changes in how technology has infused our lives so that many more of us are buying online than ever before. And on top of that, we are now buying with new virtual financial instruments that we didn't think about before. Crypto, NFTs, that you will hear more about at this summit. So, what do we do about these changes? And you will find that countries, companies, and enterprises that have survived as well as thrived did so because they were versatile, because they were open to experiments, and they were informed enough in order to grow. So that's what this summit can provide for you, to expand your knowledge beyond the professional updates that you receive through your own workshops and conferences from work. I call it growing your economic and financial literacy globally through the content of the sessions that you will be attending and through the people that you will meet from countries that many of you probably won't ever get to. But you know, learning only happens if you are open to it. So I'm asking each and every one of you, go beyond the group that you know, beyond the country that you are with. Be open to meeting others. And even if you don't know the language, you will be surprised how you can communicate even without sharing the same language. And what you will find is a far more rewarding summit experience that will put, as somebody said years ago, wings on your back, inspiration that you can't bottle, that you can't write into outcomes, but they are equally powerful. So my faith lies in all of the women who are here tonight, as well as those outside this room, not only to weather the challenges that I had mentioned earlier, but also to thrive. Because women, and those are all of you, are consistently resilient and creative. And pre-pandemic, I had mentioned earlier, women's economic output was almost 40% of the global GDP, as mentioned by McKinsey. And imagine 40%, even though women aren't paid as much as men, even though they don't have access to the best paying jobs, even though they can't get funding for their enterprises, even though many are confined to part-time work because they have family responsibilities. So just imagine if women didn't have those hurdles, they would be bringing home more money, not only to their families, but to their countries, to their communities, to the global GDP. Well, McKinsey imagined, and they estimated that by 2025, if women were given equal access to economic activity, that the global GDP would be increased by $28 trillion, okay? Somebody asked me once, what do you want from the summit? I said, I want women to have money. Because when you have money, you have power. Whether you're a waitress or an executive, the balance of power changes at home, in your community, once you're able to bring home income. So I want women to do more of that. So bottom line, there is no economic recovery post-pandemic, post-war, post any natural disaster without women's economic activity. It's just simple math. How can you recover if half, the world is not working? So we need women to be actively engaged in our economies, not only as workers, but also as leaders, not only as entrepreneurs, but some of the big ones that people keep talking about, who are big in technology. Because one of the things we discovered is we really need to be proactive about our economic futures. And the best way, frankly, is to think global, to think beyond what we already know. And in fact, there's no, how do you say it? There's no ifs, buts, or ors about being global, because we have discovered climate change is global. Viruses are global, right? There's nothing that you can do if you keep to your borders, if you think small, if you think what you know is all that there is. Remember that the challenges that I had mentioned earlier require us to step out of our comfort zones and try other things. We need to take risks. Surprisingly, actually, many of us have adapted new ways of conducting our lives far more quickly than we had realized. Going forward, we will not only thrive in this new reality I've described if we don't remain agile, if we don't learn rapidly new things, but also to act on what we learn and to innovate. I have faith that we can do so. But as I have said often, we can do it because women are smart, we are persevering, there are more of us, and we live longer. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce an exceptional individual. She is the Vice President of Vietnam, who honored us last year when she joined us in Lisbon, one of the youngest vice presidents I have ever met, Vice President Vo, who was an educator before she decided to do politics. She is a party leader in her province as well as on the national level. So please give her the warmest welcome.
Kính thưa Ngài Raut Chan-o-cha, Thủ tướng Thái Lan, thưa bà Arjen Natividad, Chủ tịch Hội nghị, thưa toàn thể quý vị đại biểu. Hôm nay, tôi rất vui mừng tham dự Hội nghị Thượng đỉnh Phụ nữ Toàn cầu năm 2022 tại đất nước Thái Lan tươi đẹp và mến khách. Trước tiên, thay mặt đoàn đại biểu Việt Nam, tôi xin gửi đến Ngài Thủ tướng Thái Lan, đến bà Chủ tịch Hội nghị và toàn thể quý vị đại biểu lời chúc hòa bình, thịnh vượng và phát triển. Nhân đây, tôi cũng xin chúc mừng những nỗ lực và kết quả đạt được của Thái Lan trong lĩnh vực bình đẳng giới và trao quyền cho phụ nữ. Điều này đã được thể hiện trong các quy định của pháp luật và cơ chế giám sát, thực thi, bảo vệ quyền và lợi ích của phụ nữ đã được công nhận qua việc công chúa Thái Lan được Tổng thư ký Liên Hiệp Quốc bổ nhiệm làm đại sứ thiện chí tại Cơ quan Liên Hiệp Quốc về bình đẳng giới và trao quyền cho phụ nữ. Với quyết tâm và mong muốn nói không với bạo hành đối với